Okay, today we're going to talk about private and homeschool partnerships for our distance learning webinar series. And before we start, I'll introduce myself. My name is Susan Quinn. I'm the Distance Learning Ambassador. And also pictured on this slide is Robin Nuttall, who's our Distance Learning Program Director. She's not here with us today, but she is really the one who makes distance learning operate at MTDA. She's the brains behind the operation. In this webinar, we're going to just talk about a couple of things. First of all, what Montana Digital Academy's message is to homeschool families when they approach us, what the local school responsibilities are, down to assessment and accountability, and then some resources that you can use with homeschool and private schools in your area to support them if they reach out for support. So the first thing I'll talk about is just the message that MTDA gives to homeschool families when they come to us. We let them know that Montana Digital Academy partners with public schools, and we're a supplemental program. So we're not a school in ourselves. Homeschool and private school students, have to participate through the local school. So that's the first thing that we tell them. We're not a standalone school. We can't enroll students directly. So we send them to the local school to enroll. And that local school is one that agrees to serve as this enrolling entity. We also tell families that every district has its own policies and guidelines for homeschool and private school participation. So we certainly do not guarantee that any homeschool will work with homeschool families to enroll in MTDA. If you decide to work with homeschool or private schools in your area, you do have some responsibilities. So one of those, whoever it is, homeschool or private school students, they become a public school student for the duration of their enrollment in MTDA. So the district needs to look at them as one of their students, even if that student never comes to campus, even if that student is a partial enrollment. The district really needs to assign a staff member to kind of monitor that student's progress and serve as liaison. If the student does remarkably well, maybe that staff member doesn't really have much communication with that student and family. If the student does start to slip and do poorly, the best practice is for that staff member to reach out and just offer support or just act as a sounding board or, again, as a liaison between the family and MTDA. We do have some enrollment or entrance counseling tools that we really encourage schools to use for not only their full-time students, but also homeschool or private school students who wish to enroll in MTDA. I have that linked on this slide, and under the video in YouTube, you'll be able to see any of those resources that I mentioned here as links under the video. So those entrance counseling tools just really ensure that families understand that MTDA has due dates. We have a pacing that students are expected to maintain, MTDA policies, and then technical requirements. In addition to that, the district really does need to confirm the student's local technology setup. So what device they're going to be using, be sure that they have consistent internet access. If it's a private school student, you may need to talk to that private school about filters. The local school is also responsible for any IEP or 504 plans. So it's the local school's responsibility to ask if the student has an IEP or 504. It's also the local school's responsibility to upload that IEP or 504 into MTDA systems so that MTDA can take a look at those plans and talk about what MTDA can support. A lot of the accommodations, MTDA can really support them pretty directly. But ultimately, it's the local school's responsibility to meet IEP and 504 accommodations. And if an MTDA class can't meet those accommodations, the local school needs to make some decisions about whether that's the right placement for that student. Some unique considerations to consider would be that a lot of homeschool families may not be familiar with really school-based routines or systems. So again, using those entrance counseling tools is very helpful to review the fact that we have deadlines, we have some communication norms, and that we do progress monitoring, and both the local school and the family will be kept abreast of the students' progress on a weekly basis or more. The school needs to be sure that the family knows the technology requirements, like the Respondus lockdown browser, which again is part of our technology requirements that every school has access to on our website, and also just directly communicating with MTDA. If you have a private school in your area, you may want to partner with them for MTDA classes. A lot of private schools partner with MTDA for AP classes, dual credit, or specialized electives that aren't available on site. So the best practice that we have found is to, if you choose to work with private schools to allow their students to enroll in MTDA classes, we say that putting that private school counselor as one of the students' guardians is a really good idea. Some schools want to add a private school counselor as like a counselor or a local support person in their MTDA account, but that's just not advisable, because then that private school counselor has access to all of the personally identifiable information for every student on that account. So all of the public school students as well, which just probably gives that private school counselor more access than they need, and therefore it would probably be a FERPA violation. Also, best practices, just confirming that MTDA communications can reach the student. If you have a private school that has a good IT department, they may filter out some email messages to their students, and you just need to be sure that MTDA messages can get to the students who are in MTDA classes. You'll need to communicate again with that private school about whitelisting of all of the MTDA domains, so that their student, again, if they're on a managed device at the private school, they can access all of the things they need to access for MTDA courses. And then you do need to know that any AP testing needs to be organized at the school level, and that would be the local public school level. So any local school that offers AP classes they're the ones who manage the AP testing, and you just need to know that MTDA doesn't take part in the testing part of AP classes. So if you have any questions about that, we can always answer them on a case-by-case basis as well. MTDA really recommends establishing, real clear local guidelines about partnerships with private or home schools for partial enrollment. So MTSBA is a great resource for writing those guidelines. We recommend that you include guidance on technology and internet access, for instance, clarifying who provides a device and connectivity. So just be careful about any of those policies, just so that it's very clear early on. We would include guidance on the transcripting process. So just like for local school students, local public school students, MTDA provides final grade reports in the form of percentages. So the enrolling school then places those grades on the official transcript, just like they do for their own local students. It's also important to realize that students need to remain enrolled locally in that local public school for the entire semester. So if a family or private school comes and drops the students from the local school needs to in turn drop that student from the MTDA course. So just keep that in mind, that it's not that a student just needs to enroll in order to get into the MTDA course. They do need to stay enrolled for the entire semester. As far as assessment and accountability, the district may be able to collect proportional A and B funding for homeschool or private school enrollments. We always send people to work with OPI about A and B funding. And the district may be required to include a homeschool or private school student in statewide testing. That probably depends on the proportion of enrollment it is, whether it's a quarter, a half-time enrollment, 3/4 time, etc. But always work directly with OPI or MTSBA to interpret the rules. So MTDA's role is really just to provide the content, the platform, the certified teacher, the instruction, and the grade reporting. So anything else, you really do need to work with OPI or MTSBA, again, to interpret any rules surrounding MTDA enrollment. If you have homeschool families who would like some resources and they're not interested in MTDA, or you don't wish to work with homeschool families for MTDA courses, you can always direct them to EdReady Montana, which is a free statewide resources for reading and math readiness. The Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation generously funds EdReady Montana, which makes it free to anyone in the state of Montana to use. So schools could suggest EdReady as an alternative support for homeschool students. Families can self-enroll directly through the EdReady Montana site. So really no public school facilitation is required to use EdReady Montana. And it doesn't require an MTDA enrollment, so it can be used independently by families. So in our resources linked below this video, I have the link directly to the EdReady site, where if a family were to scroll down near the bottom, it shows where they can enroll directly in the EdReady Montana site to use those resources. So the resources that will be linked below the video will be the homeschool one-pager for schools, just so that it's a lot of this information that I just went over here. The EdReady Montana webpage, where it is directly enrollment, the direct self-enrollment for individuals, and then the entrance counseling information, the online learning readiness matrix, and the entrance counseling form that will give you some information. Those are both good resources for just some kind of conversations to have for students either at your local school or homeschool or private school students who wish to take MTDA courses. So that's what we have for you today. We really appreciate you viewing this video, and we'll see you next time.